Stay put, everybody. We've got a great presentation coming up next. My name is Carl Soule. I work at the Adobe Hollywood offices.
And I'm Neil Stevens. I look after the pro video business for Adobe in the UK.
And we're going to be talking about collaborative workflows using a new service that's part of Creative Cloud for Teams and Creative Cloud for Enterprise. This is something that's built directly into the Creative Cloud applications for video. Tools like Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects have this service built right into them. So if you're a Creative Cloud individual user, you don't have access to team projects, but it is actually possible to even upgrade for like a month to CC Teams if you need to work with a group. If you get a contract job and they say, hey, we want you to use Creative Cloud for Teams, it's definitely possible to do that. What Team Projects is a service that allows editors to share assets and share a project with other editors. It allows motion graphics and compositors to share After Effects compositions with other After Effects users. And best of all, something we introduced here at the show for the first time, an After Effects user and an editor can collaborate together by simply sharing changes. The editor can take an After Effects composition and drag it and drop it right on a Premiere timeline. So I'm going to start over here. Niels and I are going to be working on some promos for Jason Levine's special series called Jace's Places. We've got some wonderful footage of Amsterdam here. And we're going to kind of be cutting back and forth. Before we jump in and get started on this, I'm going to go ahead and show you how easy it is to make a new team project. So you can see right in Premiere Pro, I have the ability to create, oops, let me do that one more time. I have the ability to create a new team project. Now this is currently listed in beta, but we do have real users out there using this today. We introduced it initially as a beta release in November, and it's been continually updated, so we've introduced new features to this right now. But this is now available. I'll go ahead and click New Project. And when I do this, I get this new team project window, so I can come in here and I can set this up just the same way that I would set up an After Effects project or a Premiere project. I can set up a team project in the same way. And the really important thing is this is a cloud-based service, so this project file is actually going to exist in the cloud. Now, what's really important here is we understand security as far as your media, your images and things. We're not pushing any of the media into the cloud. To use team projects, most people using team projects have local shared storage that they keep all of their media secure on shared storage internally. So the only thing that's actually going up and down from the cloud is the project metadata, okay? So now Niels and I can also work over distance if we each have a copy of the media. This will work in what's called co-located media. You know, you burn off a copy of your dailies onto an extra drive, hand that off to somebody who's getting on an airplane. Now that we both have the same footage, we can both work with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and just quickly show you here. I'll just create a Tuesday team project. I can add a description, but most importantly, I need to add collaborators. So in order to add collaborators, all I need is their Adobe ID, which is typically their email address. So by using their Adobe ID, I can add as many collaborators as I want into a team project and get up and running really, really quickly. Once I do this, this will actually look and act very, very similar to a traditional project. In fact, I'm just going to go back and open up the team project that Niels and I have been working on here. You can see here's a list of all my team projects, list of any invites that I might have done, any archived versions of a team project. And I'll go ahead and just select the one that we've been working on here and go ahead and let that open up. And you'll see the opening process a little bit different because it's going up to the cloud and it's pulling that project information down, and now I'm actually inside of this. Now I'm going to start working on this 30-second bit, but I know Niels, you're working on something else?
That's right, yeah. Do you want to just switch over to my machine on the PC and we can see how I've been working? So if we could switch to the Windows desktop. Great, thank you. So what you'll see is inside my Creative Cloud app, I've got like a sort of audit register of activities that we've been up to. So much of your experience inside Creative Cloud now is governed by your ID and what happens when you're signed in as you. So I can get the entire history of what Carl and I have been doing all week to this project and working together. That's kind of tied to the fact that, as Carl says, the experience is dictated by your Adobe ID. Back inside Premiere itself, the good news is if you're already a Premiere editor, there's literally nothing to learn about using team projects. Well, I tell a lie, there are two buttons to learn. And they're right down here. You have get latest changes or share changes. The only difference between a team project and a local project is that the team project is held in our cloud, and it allows you to have multiple people editing simultaneously. So what I've been building here is a full resolution 4K sequence of some of these Amsterdam rushes. I've got a sort of opening GV shot there. Then we cut to Jason doing a piece to camera, and there's some B-roll cutaways that I put across the top there. So that's kind of 10 seconds long and feels good to me in terms of pacing. So what I'm going to do now is actually go ahead and share those changes with Carl. And as he mentioned, as long as he's got the same media, or at least proxy copies of the same media, we can both work on this project together. So a couple of releases ago, we introduced a proxy workflow in Premiere. This is the new button here on the play bar. You can actually have two sets of media attached to clips within a bin, which means as long as I have a version of that media available to me, it could be small enough to actually sync through my Creative Cloud storage folder as well. So you could actually use that as a mechanism to push media across to each other. Anyway, I'm ready to go ahead and share these changes with Carl. And I'll say, check out this 10-second rough cut. And I will share that. And so the sandbox I've been operating inside the server will now become the new truth of that project for anybody else checking out the changes. And if we can go back across to Carl's desktop, in a few seconds you should be able to see, there we are.
All right, so now that we're back on my machine, now like Neil said, when he's doing his work, he is in a separate sandbox. Now, with a team project, everything that you're working on is continually syncing up to the cloud. So even if his machine suddenly dies, in theory, you can just go to a different machine, sign onto your Adobe ID, open up the system, and that sandbox would be available to Niels again. But nobody else in the team project sees what he's doing until he decides to push the changes out. Now, I'm currently working in the same team project on a different sequence, but I want to see what Niels is working on. I can't see those changes until I click this button here. So I can decide and choose when it's time for me to share or just see those changes and get those changes. So I'm going to go ahead and click, and we'll get those changes. Now you'll notice I've got the Lumetri color interface up and running here. Now, nothing changed on the sequence I'm working on here, but I can see that Niels has now added a rough cut sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. This looks pretty good. This clip looks a little bit washed out. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and just, since I'm in the Lumetri color, I'm in my color workspace, just while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and take and add an adjustment layer. And we'll just stick that above this opening shot here. And with that selected, I don't have a lot of time here, but even something like this is kind of a nice crunchy looking color LUT. We've got a number of different film emulation stocks that we can pick and choose from. I'm just going to kind of look through a couple of these here. We're into black and white. Day for night, do we need that? No, I like this blue ice. It kind of gives that sort of a wintry day in Amsterdam kind of a feel to it. I'm just going to double click and add that to this adjustment layer here. Now, I can see a little icon here that's actually showing me that somebody else is currently working on this and somebody else has already shared changes with this. So let me see what happens here. I've made a change to this. I'm going to go ahead and get those changes as well. Now, what I'm betting I'm going to see here is that there is a conflict. Ah, yes. Now, think about this. Would you ever be editing the same exact sequence at the same time as another editor? Has anybody ever done that on another NLE and ran into all kinds of problems? You guys know what I'm talking about. Now, Team Projects doesn't use any type of a locking system, but what it does after the fact is it gives you the ability to resolve conflicts. If I'm in a situation where I'm just kind of tinkering around with this, I'm not really doing any real work on it, but I'm kind of experimenting, maybe all I want to do is just get rid of what I just did and take what Niels is currently been working on. I'm going to use the safe version of this. I'm going to say copy, rename mine, and take the shared version. So when I do this, it's going to actually give me a situation where my version goes into a separate folder, and Niels's changes actually take the primary position here. But that doesn't mean I can't kind of compare and contrast these two. I can go ahead and load my version here in the source monitor and Niels's version over here. I can even take and open this in the timeline itself. And we even have, for kind of a review, you could set up two different versions of the timeline together here. So here's my version over here. Here's Niels' version. You know what? I've decided Niels didn't make any other changes. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and take Niels' version, delete it. And I'm going to take my version and promote it. And we'll go ahead and get rid of this pancake display here. And at this point, I can go ahead and push my changes live, and we can continue to move on. Now we'll talk about, let's use mine. And we'll hit share. We'll talk about how we can go back and actually retrieve things from the past. So you can always feel comfortable about deleting something as long as you've shared your changes at some point in the past. It's easy to go back and get things from the past. But with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Niels. You want to talk a little bit about media management?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the key things that holds all this together is the ability to have the system manage the media for you. Because, and again, as you notice, Carl's on a Mac and I'm on a Windows machine. Doesn't make any difference at all. We're still able to collaborate fully. Inside this page here, media management, all you're doing is actually adding a mapping so that you're telling the system where the media, the relative path of where it should start looking for those files is, and it will pick it up. So, for instance, on a Windows machine, it's a D drive. Storage on a Mac doesn't have letters associated with it, but you just put show it the root of that disk, and it will be able to actually figure all that out as soon as you go into the team project. And it does recall those mappings every time you go back in, so it knows where it should look for a version of that media. And as mentioned, provided the file names are the same, it could be a low-res proxy of those files. It doesn't matter as long as it's a representation of that media. The other interesting thing that Carl talked about was this concept of going through the history of a production. So if I call up the media browser, this is true of After Effects, Premiere, and Media Encoder now. They all have visibility of this media browser. One of the locations I can browse and search within is the team project. So this is all a virtual project structure that's held inside the cloud. I can go inside the Jace's Places project that we've been working on, and I can have a look at how that exists now. So that's exactly the same representation of this project as the one I'm currently working on. But as Carl mentioned, we've got this concept of a history slider. So you see you've got the toggle the team project history slider. This is a bit like a sort of time machine that allows me to go back in time and go through every version of this project that was ever checked in. And of course, if you're fastidious with your comments on what you've been doing, you'll be able to tell exactly where you were within the workflow. So we have Carl saying at, 6 o'clock apparently, don't know what time zone that is, but let's use mine. Me saying I trimmed some of the cutaways, check out this 10-second rough cut, moved it to the root, rolling back, dynamic link comp. And we can go all the way back to the very inception of this project when the very first clip was ingested. So you never lose anything. So even in the scenario Carl showed you where we're not communicating, we're not talking to each other, we've been pulling in different directions, and we've ended up with a branch and tree situation with two copies of the same sequence, still doesn't matter because we can always roll back to exactly how things looked before. So it's probably worth talking a little bit about some of the After Effects stuff now. So did you want to introduce us to the other sequence that you've been working on?
A little bit, yeah. So if we could switch back over to my my system. So this is a 30-second cut of a promo that kind of working on, doing a little bit of color work, kind of walking through, checking out some of the different scenes and sites in Amsterdam. We've got a voiceover recorded in Premiere from Jason. And I noticed that this particular shot here has kind of a rare thing in Amsterdam. Usually the skies in Amsterdam are beautiful, clouds moving, beautiful colors, everything else. I like getting this shot of the sign in here, but we've just got the sky is just kind of dead. There's no energy in the sky. We want to do a sky replacement, and obviously that's not something I'm going to do in Premiere Pro. So we need to, at this point, start thinking about moving over to Adobe After Effects. Now, After Effects is a full-class citizen inside of team projects as well. So you can see I just switched over and something updated automatically for me. So if you're running After Effects in Premiere on the same system and you're switching between the different applications, you don't share changes because you have one sandbox for both Premiere and After Effects that you just see the changes update as you move back and forth between the applications. And this is another key point to be aware of. There is no After Effects team project or a Premiere Pro team project. There's just a team project. That one project has comps, sequences, media, so that as the After Effects artist, I have access to all of the sequences, all of the raw media, the music that were in the Premiere project, because it's one project. It's so difficult to even talk about because you keep wanting to say the Premiere project, the After Effects. No, it's a team project. Everything is in there. So I can even take my sequence and load it up in the source monitor and actually start looking at and kind of checking stuff out inside the source monitor. There we go. There's one. There's the other. So I can even kind of scrub through and play back sequences, Premiere sequences inside of After Effects. Now, Niels, the shot that we want is going to be it's a shot of, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, you've already got it up on your screen.
That's right.
Let's shift over to Niels' system.
So here we are. Here's that beautiful crystal clear blue sky shot of Amsterdam. But we thought we'd have a bit of fun at this one and actually create a matte to cut out the skyline and superimpose a different background on there. So using Adobe Stock, which has some 3 million 4K video assets available on it now, you can see I've got a kind of time-lapse thing going on here. So I was going to just superimpose that behind the original shot. We've got a high-quality matte that we've worked on here as well. This mask that we've got is something that we're going to use. It's been created with the Roto Brush tool and the Refine Edge tool, stolen straight out of Photoshop. But what we end up with when we're done is something like this. So if I can position that sky, just so that we can see the Adobe Stock logo nicely at the back there in the sky. Of course, when you license this footage, it dynamically updates and replaces this footage for you with the high-resolution licensed version. But I'm quite liking the way that looks now. So in exactly the same way as I did in Premiere, you've got the Get Changes and Share Changes button over here. Let me go ahead and share that. And I can say it's going to synchronize. Oh, and again, we have a conflict, but that's fine.
I'm still playing over here in Premiere, so we just have to synchronize up a change in the Premiere sequence. But I don't think there's even a conflict because I'm working at a completely different asset.
Okay. Well, the main thing is that team projects will hold your hand through all of that. You can never go wrong with the history slider. So I put a fun time lapse behind this shot. Go and share. And then that's now actually available as a comp inside the team project. But as Carl mentioned, a team project is a super project that can contain After Effects assets and Premiere assets at the same time.
Let's go ahead and switch back over to my system. So a couple of other things about team projects to be aware of. As you're online, again, like I mentioned before, everything is synchronizing up to the cloud so that your up-to-the-minute moment in your project is saved in the cloud. You can always check this by looking down in the lower corner here, and if you see a little checkbox here, That will tell you that everything has been synced remotely. There is an offline mode that team projects can work in. If you lose connection or if you need to access something and your internet connection's not that great, there isn't a way that this will work offline. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get my latest changes here because I want to get that comp from Niels. The other thing you can also see is we've got little thumbnails here of our Adobe ID pictures. I'm looking a little bit grumpy in mine, and Niels, you need to update yours.
A bit anonymous.
But if I needed to add another collaborator really quickly, I can just click this plus here and add an email address with an Adobe ID. So I can see it's highlighted for me here. Here's the sky replacement done. I can double click on this and it actually loads as a video clip. It is a dynamically linked After Effects comp inside the team project. And so from here, I can just take this and drag it. And kind of a best practice that I always like to use when you're working with visual effects, I'm putting this in an upper layer above the original clip. So if I need to toggle to kind of see the difference between the raw original plate and the composition, I can easily do that. Now, the last thing that I wanted to quickly touch on is, if I want to, I can share my changes at this point, but I think you guys get the idea of how quick and easy that is. If I need to export this out, or if another team member may be working on a really beefy workstation someplace that goes far and beyond what my laptop is, they can open up Media Encoder on a different workstation, and you'll notice that just like the media browser in Premiere, I've got a media browser in Media Encoder that can see the team project server. I can see the particular project we're working on, and I've already dragged and dropped in this 30-second promo, and I've given it a profile. So I could start this rendering. I could make duplicate copies of it. Media Encoder, again, being it can do multiple encodes in parallel. So if you need to output, you have 3 deliverables for different screens, different sources. You can do that inside a Media Encoder. And again, Media Encoder, first-class citizen with team projects as well. All right, we are completely out of time, so we're going to wrap up here. Definitely stay tuned. Nick Berthold from Fine Brothers Entertainment is coming up next. He's got a fantastic presentation. Please stick around. We'll be around over on this side to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.